Welcome to Jake and Nick's Takes and Picks. It's wonderful Wednesday morning. I'm here with my colleague, Nicholas Salvatore. How we doing, Nick?
Jake, we're doing great. What about yourself?
I'm doing good. I'm not doing great. I lost a lot of money on the Saints. I don't know how they get rolled over by the Raiders. But
What a
that's
game. What a
football,
game.
folks, and that's gambling, folks.
Who would have thought?
What are we talking about today, Nicholas?
So today we're going to be talking about NFL Week 3. We're going to do our version of Stardom Situm, how it's going to work. Jake's going to give his Stardom. I'll give my Stardom. Jake will give his Situm. And then I'll give my Situm. And we're going to do that from quarterback down to defense. And then at the end, we're going to do a little sleeper bust kind of action. So, Jake, you want to start it off?
We're going to win you guys some money. We're going to give you guys some bragging rights. And we're only going to do one each. We're going to try to make it where most of these people you can either trade nothing for or pick them up off the waiver wire. So let's get to it. So we're going to start off at QB. My Stardom, Matthew Stafford.
Ooh,
The Detroit Lions 0-2. They're hungry. They're getting Galladay back. They didn't look great, but they played two good teams. They got whomped by the Green Bay Packers. So I think they're going to come out with a vengeance. Matt Stafford had 42 and 33 attempts in his last two. I think it's going to be a shootout against Kyler Murray and Arizona. So I think he's a great start. I think people are going to be off of him. So put him in that starting spot.
I like it. All right, for my Stardom at QB, I'm going to go Mitchell Trubisky. Very surprising. In the last video, I said I don't like the Bears, but it's all about the matchup. In week 1, Russell Wilson had 35 points against them. Dak had 44 in week 2. You just got to think the Falcons are going to score. And if anything, Mitch is going to get his points in garbage time. He had 24.3 last week. Cheap, 5,700 in DraftKings. I think it's a good plug and play.
Trubisky lovers are going to love you this week.
They are.
All right, so first hit him, Baker Mayfield.
Yes,
I think
right
he's
there.
way overhyped. Coming off of a big Thursday night win versus the Cincinnati Bengals, who are very bad. Very bad. That's it. I think Washington's front seven is very good. I think they're going to stack the box. They're going to make Baker pass. They're going to stop that run game of Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb. So I think when you eliminate that, you make Baker pass, and I just don't know if he's going to get it done. So I think you sit Baker this week. I don't like him at all. I think the Redskins are a little bit better than the public thinks. So I like that sit-up.
I like that. All right, sit him on my end. Derek Carr. Now you might be saying he's only 5,400 in DraftKings. Not much of a sit there. He's at New England. But, I mean, his last game against the Saints, he looked good. He scored a decent amount of points. But not much to be said here. He is at New England. We know Belichick's track record there. I don't think their receivers are going to be good enough to get away from their physical corners playing man defense. I think Belichick's going to do some things and kind of confuse Derek Carr a little bit.
For sure.
But yeah, Derek Carr set him this week.
I like that. I like that a lot. Okay, on to running backs. My Stardom, I love this play. I loved him last year before he got hurt. Jerick McKinnon. I think we forget about him because last year San Fran signed him on a big deal, and he tore his ACL the first game. Mm-hmm. And now with Coleman out and Mostert out, we're finally going to get to see full run for Jerick McKinnon. I think he's great, especially in PPR leagues. I think he's going to get a lot of passes. You have the backup quarterback, most likely Nick Mullins. And I just think he's going to do a lot of dump offs to Jerick McKinnon. Jerick McKinnon is good in space. He can make a defender miss, and he can get a lot of yardage. So I think he's a great play this week. I think he's cheap. You got to go with him.
Nice. I kind of have a similar start in Joshua Kelly, a guy that maybe you don't know about at this point, but he's definitely gaining some traction among some of the other insiders in the league. Kelly got 12 carries for 60 yards and a touchdown in week 1, and 23 carries last week for 64 yards.
What a stat.
He also had 2 catches for 49 yards, 13.3 points. They have Eckler, but Kelly is obviously part of their game plan. He's going to continue to get those touches, and he's even getting most of the goal line work. So just expect that usage to continue. I like him here as a start.
Absolutely love that. And I think the coach said some good things about him too.
And they're at the Panthers. The Panthers have not been great against the run. You've seen it with Jacobs in week 1. And then again against the Bucs, Leonard Fournette went off against them. So
I said this in our last video. I'll say it again. I think I would be better by myself on the defensive line. But on to the sit-ems. Rojo. Our good friend Eric Scott's not going to like this, but I'm sitting Rojo this week. He came out of the game because he fumbled. Tom Brady was irate on the sideline saying, put Leonard Fournette in. And what they do? They put Leonard Fournette in. They obviously signed him, to play him. He's finally learned the playbook. Coach Bruce Arians said that he learned the playbook very well, very quickly, and he came in last game and he showed some good stuff. So I think that Ronald Jones is not going to get enough run. I think, he only had 7 attempts last game while they were leading. And I think Leonard Fournette's the play here. I think we sit Ronald Jones.
Yeah, I'm going to have to agree with you there, Jake.
Oh, yeah.
All right, moving on to my sit-em at running back. I'm going to go Joe Mixon against my Philadelphia Eagles. Joe Mixon, a guy that has promise every year, I feel like. He's the bell cow back. He is on the Bengals. But what's going on with Joe Mixon is the fact that he's just not producing. The guy had 7.1 points against the Chargers in week 1. Only 12.6 against Cleveland in week 2. Philly's defense is really good, at least on the D line. I don't see Mixon really getting going too much. He might get a catch here or there, but I'm going to sit Mixon in this one.
I feel like he's always overhyped. Or it's like, all right, Mixon's got it this year. Like, he's bell cow, really doesn't compete with anybody. But I feel like last game we saw Giovanni Bernard. I'm pretty sure he caught a touchdown. Or maybe they called him short after, but
yeah, I'm just not trusting him, especially at 5,900.
Too much. All right, wide receivers. On to wide receivers. Emmanuel Sanders. I love the start this week.
Wow.
I think everybody is off of him. Everybody is off of him. Michael Thomas is not back. They were away last game. Emmanuel Sanders had 0 targets, I think, till the second half. He got his first catch, I think, in the fourth quarter. And I just think that Drew Brees is going back home to his dome. He plays much better at home. They know they're going to need Emmanuel Sanders after that loss to the Raiders. I think they're going to make more plays for him. They're going to give him more opportunity, and they're going to throw it to him a lot more. So I love the pick, Emmanuel Sanders this week. Everybody's off of him, and I think you play him.
That's a good pick. I like that.
A little risky, but you know what?
Keenan Allen alluded to it a little bit in the last video with how he looked with Justin Herbert. He had a decent amount of targets with Tyrod in week 1. However, I was concerned with his usage, and Tyrod just couldn't really get him the ball. Herbert looked like a veteran in there. He had 10 targets. I believe he caught 8 of them. I'm looking for Keenan to have a big game against Carolina.
I love that pick, Nick. Love that. Nobody's on him now. I mean, he's been so good for so long, and now just everybody's off of him.
6,100, like that's low for him even.
For sure. Sit him. Your boy, OBJ, Odell Beckham Jr., I don't like him this week. Similar to what I said about Baker, I think that the Browns are overhyped. I think that Washington's front 7 is just too good. They're going to make Baker throw, and I just don't think that he's going to be good enough. And also, people are big on OBJ right now because last week he had, I think maybe a 70-yard touchdown or a really long touchdown, and he still only got 17 DraftKings points. So if you take away that long touchdown with the catch, the touchdown, and the yardage, he does nothing. And I think he's going to do that again this week. I like him as a sit. I'm not going to play him, that's for sure. And he's pretty expensive on DraftKings at 6,300.
Yeah, I agree there. For me, kind of a similar situation as far as regarding last week's points. So Stephon Diggs, I'm calling this a classic trap. He had the 32 points last week.
Oh, yeah.
You know how it works. Someone pops off, the next week everyone's on him. The thing is, they're facing the Rams. You'd have to think that he's going to see a lot of Jalen Ramsey, and the Rams defensive line is just so good. I don't think that Josh Allen is going to have the time that he had against Miami in week 2. I just don't see Stephon Diggs really popping off here. I'm sure he might get his target share, but I believe a lot of those are going to be incomplete. So I'm sitting Stephon Diggs.
Quick question here. So are you down on the Bills overall? Because would you play John Brown knowing that Ramsey's going to be on Diggs?
I feel like I'm just shying away in this matchup. If anything, maybe like a Cole Beasley in the slot. I think he might get some of those quick slants and outs that he loves to do. But as far as the outside guys, I just don't think they're going to have that much time to really get the ball downfield to them.
I like it. All righty, on to tight ends. This is where Nick and I have the same pick. We don't tell each other our picks beforehand. So we're both huge on this guy. Drew Sample, relatively unheard of. Unless you're a diehard football fan, I don't think you've ever heard of him. He's the backup tight end for the Cincinnati Bengals. Joe Burrow throwing to him. CJ Uzomah got hurt last game. Drew Sample came in, got 9 targets in the second half. Joe Burrow loves his tight ends. Rookie QBs in general love their tight ends. But Joe Burrow in particular, in the national championship game last year, Thaddeus Moss had a huge game, Randy Moss's son, who was the tight end for LSU. I see no reason why he's not going to get a bunch of targets. Drew Sample, great play. Nick, I believe you agree.
Yeah, I agree, Jake. As you can tell, we definitely did not tell each other about this because Jake just took my top 2 points that I was going to talk about here. He did have 9 targets. Joe does love his tight end, and I put CC Moss at LSU.
No way. Wow, we're on the same page here.
Through this, though, they're playing my Philadelphia Eagles. I obviously watched that game. There's a little guy on the Rams named Tyler Higbee, who I believe had 3 touchdowns against the Eagles last week. Drew Sample, 3,500 on DraftKings. He's probably so low owned in all of the, the standard and the PPR lineups, whether you're on Yahoo or ESPN.
Pick him up.
He's going to be a beast going forward. Uzomah is out. Love Drew Sample this week.
Love Drew Sample. Huge week. On to the next. Sit 'em. Jack Doyle. The Doyle. He was out last week. He only had 4 targets the first week. I think a lot of people are big on him just because they know his name.
Right.
And I don't think he's a good play this week. Last week, he was out. Mo Alley-Cox came in. Had a huge game, over 100 yards receiving, had 4 targets. I think that he is not going to get enough of the share. I think Mo Alley-Cox is going to play more. They're going to split snaps, and I think he's going to be much more of the blocking tight end because he's actually a very good blocker. And so I'm going to sit him this week. I don't think he gets enough usage.
So you think Mo Alley-Cox is coming into that kind of Eric Ebron role?
Absolutely. More of the pass catcher.
Right. For me, it's Jordan Reed.
After that thriller of a game he had, Nicky boy?
I think this is another trap play. Matthew Berry was really big on him being a bust last week. He kind of had to roll back his comments during the game. But, I think Mullins, when he comes in, he's going to have a hard time against the Giants. It's going to be his first game in who knows how long. I think they're going to rely heavily on the run game, and I don't see Jordan Reed as their pass blocking or their run blocking tight end.
Mm-hmm.
He's mainly there for his pass catching abilities. I don't think he has the game that he had last week. He may get a few targets here and there, but I'm sitting Jordan Reed this week.
Like it. Let him have his big game last week. Now you're off of him. Too many people are going to be on him. He's not going to get. He have 2 touchdowns. It's not going to get that again.
Yeah.
On to the next. Defense. I'm starting the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Tampa 2.
The Bucs.
At Denver. The most glaring statistic here, they're playing a backup quarterback in Jeff Driscoll. I know they're at Denver, but I just think that this defense is a little bit underrated because Tom Brady and the offense have gotten so much love, so much hype. And I think the Tampa defense is decent. I think they're pretty good. And I just don't think that the backup quarterback is going to get it done. Obviously, Jeff Driscoll looked okay versus the Steelers last week, but that's because he came in. There was no planning for him. It's a lot different when you have a week to plan for a backup quarterback. So I love the Tampa Bay Bucs D this week. They're a little bit expensive, but I think they're worth it on DraftKings too.
All right. Well, for me this week, I'm going to start the Washington football team's defense. Why I'm starting them, they're cheap in DraftKings, 3,000. Didn't really like any defenses below that. But also, the Washington football team had 15 points against the Eagles in week 1. Their D-line looks legit. They had 4 against the Cardinals last week, but the Cardinals are a really good team. I think that Kyler Murray's rushing ability really hurt that defense. Baker doesn't have that kind of ability that Kyler has, that's for sure. Baker also struggles a lot under pressure. The guy makes some bad decisions when he's under pressure. I think Washington is going to get under his skin. Baker struggles. I think you start the Washington football team defense this week.
Love it. Love it. This is why I'm down on Baker and Odell. We're kind of in agreement there.
Tough matchup for them.
Absolutely. Sit them, the Buffalo Bills. Now, the Buffalo Bills, I think, are a good defense. No, I think they're really good.
Yeah.
But I think the Rams are going to have a big year this year. I think their 3-headed monster in the running game is good. They have Brown, they have Henderson, they have Akers, who I think got hurt. I love their receivers. I just love their offense in general. They have Robert Woods, Cooper Kupp, Higbee with the huge game. I just think that they're going to score a lot of points. So I think the Bills defense is a sit this week.
All right. I'm going to go with the Cleveland Browns. Cleveland Browns defense is the 4th most expensive defense on DraftKings this week. They're playing the Washington football team, which I spoke about a little bit earlier. I just don't like them here. I think that the Washington football team's defense is going to cause some turnovers, and they're going to cause some quick 4-and-outs against the Browns. That's going to put them in some bad field position, which in turn is going to relate to some points for the football team. I think that Washington, I think I said it in the last video, that they're going to win this game. And I think that they're going to score at least probably like 24 points. So I'm sitting the Browns defense this week.
Love it. Love it. All right. Now on to some sleepers and busts. I will go first. Our boy, James Robinson. Nick has him in our fantasy team. I think played him last week. He's got some cojones. It's 17 points. I think that he's their number 1 running back versus Miami, who doesn't have a great defense. This game could be absolutely a shootout. I love James Robinson. I think he's probably on the waivers in most leagues. People don't know about him at all. They have the Armstead guy who had COVID for a while, and just Robinson is their number 1 guy for sure. So I like that. And the other guy, I touched on it earlier, Leonard Fournette. Rojo came out. He had 7 attempts last week. He had the fumble. Leonard Fournette came in. He looked good. He looks like he's going to be a big player for Tampa Bay moving forward. So I like Leonard Fournette. I don't know if he's that much of a sleeper. But if he's on your waivers, you can trade cheap for him. I think you get him because I think he's going to have a big rest of the season.
Yeah, I agree with you, Jake. I think he's going to win that job over Rojo. He's just a better back, more experience. And I think he'll probably have a pretty good game against Denver.
And why are they going to sign him if they're not going to play him? I mean, that doesn't make sense.
Exactly. So. He's too good.
Yeah.
All right, sleepers for me. Jerry Jeudy. I don't know if you would consider this a sleeper. He was a first-round pick. Pretty much everyone knows his name. He played at Alabama. But you got to think that Denver is going to be down in this game against Tampa Bay. And with the news of Courtland Sutton being out for the year, I think they're going to rely heavily on Jeudy in this one.
Yeah.
And he'll probably get around that 8 to 10 target range, and even some garbage time points, I think. And then moving on to the next one, Russell Gage. Russell Gage is the 3rd wide receiver for the Atlanta Falcons behind Julio Jones and Calvin Ridley. Calvin Ridley, we talked about in the last video, has just been off to a blazing fast start this year. I'll talk about him in a little bit, but I think Gage is that sneaky guy. You know, when you think about the Falcons, you're going to rely on stopping Julio and Calvin and Todd Gurley. And then there's Russell Gage, who has been just eating up targets in the last 2 weeks. Yep. I think he scored over 15 in the past 2 games. Look for him to have a big game against Chicago. And
there's definitely more touchdowns for Russell Gage because Calvin Ridley's just been eating them up. There was Hurst, a couple touchdowns for Hurst. You know, I think that touchdown variance, if he had a couple more touchdowns, there would be so much hype on him, but he doesn't, which is why he's kind of a sleeper.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to keep that pace.
Now, we only picked one bust each. My bust is Adam Thielen. I think the Minnesota Vikings are not good. Not good. I know he didn't have a great game last week, but people will be looking at week 1 maybe thinking last week's a fluke when Adam Thielen, I think, had 2 long touchdowns in the fourth quarter. So that touchdown variance, I think, doesn't treat him right. I think it's going to be a run-first game. They have Dalvin Cook and Derrick Henry on both sides. I think it's just going to be an old school run the football, pound the ball, waste a bunch of time on the clock. So I do not like Adam Thielen this week at all. Yeah, he's my expensive bust play.
Yeah. My bust is Calvin Ridley. The guy, like I said, has been on a tear. He's been eating up targets. He's been eating up touchdowns. But guess what? It's not a secret anymore. I don't think Chicago comes into this saying, let's stop Julio Jones. I think they come to this saying, let's stop Calvin Ridley. I think that I'm just going to piggyback off of the Russell Gage pick. I think Russell Gage is the one that has the big game. I think Ridley struggles in this one. That's pretty much what I'm thinking about.
I like that. Going Gage over Ridley this week. I like that. I think Julio comes back. Love it. All righty. Well, that'll do it. QB, running back, wide receiver, tight end, defense, some sleepers and busts. There you have it. On to looking ahead. What do we got coming up on Friday morning, Nicky boy?
Friday morning, we are going to talk about some DFS, mainly DraftKings. Jake and I have been playing DraftKings for about 5-6 years now. We make teams every single week, multiple teams. What we're going to do is
drafting workshop.
Make some teams. That's right. We're going to do a DraftKings workshop. That's what we like to call it. And then we'll have some set it and forget it.
Set it and forget it.
Throw together a team that we think is a lock and see how they do. It's
fun stuff.
For sure.
All righty. Well, that's it for today. Nick, you have yourself a great Wednesday. I will as well. Everybody, be good.